What up, this is Patrick Hayes. Welcome to my YouTube channel. And in this video, what I'd like to talk about is why it is important for you to spend time with the people that you admire. Actually spend time in the flesh with these people. And a very special kind of learning that happens when you are going through this process, which is something that we could call energy transmission learning. So if you stick around to the end of this video, you are going to understand more deeply what energy transmission learning actually is, why it's so powerful, and how you can do it yourself and start becoming the kind of person that you truly admire. So there's a lot of obvious reasons why it's beneficial to hang out with the people that you admire. Obviously, when you admire people, if they have some sort of quality that you would like to develop within yourself, then it's good to be around them and learn that quality from them, learn how to do things like they're doing so that you can embody that and you can grow and you can become a better person. It's basically just like a teacher-student relationship. Now, the issue is that some people don't feel comfortable in a student kind of role. And oftentimes these people will try to put themselves in situations where they're always the teacher. And the problem with this is it really stunts their growth and it can develop a certain level of arrogance. I'm sure you've all come across people before that kind of are know-it-alls, that feel like they know everything about everything, and they don't feel comfortable going into a student role. So when they're around somebody else that maybe is more knowledgeable on a particular subject, you'll see them tune out or kind of distance themselves from that environment because they want to be the big dog at all times. And that's just not a place that we want to be in. Now, this is quite obvious. Staying a student is crucial, and having admiration for people is actually a healthy vibration to put yourself in. Being very grateful or feeling admiration or feeling reverence for the beautiful qualities that somebody has is a great way for you to actually be able to absorb some of those qualities. In other words, oftentimes people will get jealous when they're with somebody that, say, is more developed than them in a certain way. They'll start feeling jealous. But when you get jealous that somebody else is more advanced than you, and what actually you're doing is you're blocking yourself from receiving those gifts. How you receive gifts from other people that have nice qualities that you would like to develop in yourself is you admire those qualities, you appreciate those qualities, and in the appreciation of it, you're calling them into yourself. Now, the best way to call these energies into yourself is through a kind of learning that I'm going to call energy transmission learning. And I'm going to explain what that is by describing it in contrast to traditional scientific learning as we all learned in school. So traditional learning is very much like objective observational learning. So we look at something, we observe it, we make calculations, we measure it in whatever way that we can, and then we try to repeat that process in order to learn how to do it ourselves. So you can think of it in a lot of different ways. If you were learning how to play a sport, say basketball for instance, what you could do is you could look at the way that the person was moving and you could copy the way that they're moving. You could look at the arc ratio of the ball and how it moves towards the hoop, and you could try to shoot it in that same arc ratio. If you were trying to figure out how to be more like another person in, say, your social skills, then you would observe how they handle different situations. You'd observe their body language, you'd observe their vocal tone, and you would try to mimic that body language and vocal tone and maybe even some of the same types of responses that they have in conversations in order to emulate and learn how to, say, master the social skills that they've mastered. So this objective learning is, there's nothing wrong with it. It's actually a great way of learning. It's a great way of integrating things and understanding things with your mind. But the problem with it, if you're using that alone, is that it's soulless in a sense, meaning there's no vibe to it. It's basically purely intellectual. So if you think of somebody that's playing basketball, like an actual high-level performer, like Michael Jordan, when he's playing and he's like backing up to shoot his shot, he's not thinking in his head, okay, cock back to a 45-degree angle with my wrist and then let it go so that there's a, whatever degree arc ratio moving towards the hoop. He's not thinking in scientific terms like that, right? He's not thinking objectively like that. He's in the moment. He's in the flow, right? So learning from energy transmission is learning how to tap into the energetic space of the person that you're learning from. And when you tap into the energetic space, then it's not so much about thinking things out and figuring out the mechanics of it in an intellectual way as much as it is about feeling it. And actually, through feeling, we can oftentimes be able to catapult ourselves way beyond our present performance level in a very intuitive way that doesn't require us to, say, bang our head against the wall trying to figure out ratios and whatnot. In fact, this is the way that all children learn at a very young age, before they're taken into the school system and taught to learn a different way. How children actually learn is they emulate the people that they admire. They spend time around their parents, they spend time around all sorts of different people, and they get an energetic transmission through osmosis. And that emanation of energy is something that they feel, and then they mimic, and then they emulate, and then they do their best to feel inside themselves. And you see this as a child. Many children are emulating the people that they admire. And very often, as they continue to emulate that person and kind of like pretend, but just like feel the vibe of whatever confidence or whatever thing they're emulating, eventually they become that. And see, the interesting thing about this is that when you're vibrating at a particular frequency, there's a series of thoughts that harmonize with that. There's a series of beliefs that harmonize with that, right? So if you're vibing like a Michael Jordan, then you're vibing in a sense with like a winner's vibe, right? And there's a certain intuition that can come from that kind of vibration. So if you could really tune into his vibe and really vibe with that, there's gonna be something very valuable there, because you can't pre-plan everything. You can't just watch other people, see how they respond to stuff, and then kind of like memorize all the different responses. What you have to do is you have to get in that intuitive vibration so that your intuition is something that's in a flow. And then you flow with the circumstances, you flow with the different situations, as opposed to trying to have an automated response. This leaves you open to creativity, and it's a much more powerful way of being able to navigate in any realm. Now, of course, you would want to practice the particular different techniques that you're learning. This doesn't mean that it's just purely intuitive. You get in the vibe and it's purely intuitive. But if you do one without the other, then you're going to be missing out a lot. Now, oftentimes people don't even know intellectually, in a scientific way, what they're actually doing. You see this really commonly with people that are able to do amazing things, and you ask them, you're like, how did you do that? And they can't really explain it to you. It's just something they intuitively know. See, this is because this person was able to learn intuitively how to do a particular thing, but they never deconstructed it and turned it into an intellectual understanding, right? This is what science does. It deconstructs things and turns it into an intellectual understanding. Then it has the capacity to explain things, then it has the capacity, once it's integrated, to recreate a particular thing on demand. Whereas an intuitive kind of expression person can't necessarily recreate things on demand or explain themselves. So it's important also to understand what you're doing, because that gives you the capacity to teach, and it also gives you the greater capacity to round out whatever skill or whatever download you're trying to integrate. But really getting into the vibration is really where the magic is, because this is like the essence. This is the soul of whatever ability or craft or thing that you're trying to learn. If you want to master anything, it's about taking whatever that activity is, taking whatever those skills are, and in a sense, integrating it into a feeling so that you're not stuck in your head, that you can just act from a feeling space. And maybe even a really complex thing becomes just a feeling as opposed to a thought out thing. You might have to think it out and go through it as you're learning that, but then you get into the essence learning and you start to embody it as an essence, and then that essence is the response in the circumstances is a feeling. And the best way to learn how to embody that essence is through spending time around other people that have already embodied that essence and getting into that energetic flow with them. So this is why it's so important to spend time with people you admire. And this is why it's also really important to admire people. Because if you don't admire the person, then you're getting in a resistance state. So if you're jealous of somebody's skills, you're getting into a resistant state. And in that resistant state, you're not getting the transmission. You're not getting the energy flow, right? You're not able to harmonize with the energy because you're judging it in some way. And so therefore, you can't absorb the blessings of it. But when you admire people, When there's something beautiful that someone's doing and you appreciate that, by appreciating it, you're becoming sympathetic. You're starting to move with that energy. And when you move with it, you get the transmission and you actually start downloading whatever that quality is. So this is why it's extremely important to spend time with the people that you admire so you can get that energetic download and appreciate them for the mastery that they've cultivated. Admire that. And in that admiration, you absorb those blessings and you start developing the capacity to express those qualities also. So that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for tuning in. This is Patrick Hayes. Like, subscribe, share with your friends. If you found this video useful, please share it with somebody else that you feel might find it useful too. And I will talk to you next time. One love.